To emulate or not to emulate?
What do you guys think?
Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett, back and alongside me, Mr.
Saul Bridges, bringing you lucky episode 72. Getting up there.
Getting up there indeed. Getting up there indeed. Let's see.
Tell them who we are.
Saul, we are, as I continue to learn these new things, we are Triangle Squared, PlayStation podcast, like we said, and you can find us in video format on YouTube every Monday at 12 p.m. CST, 10 a.m. PST. I did it backwards, but that's okay. It's still the correct information. If you follow us on YouTube or found this on YouTube, consider giving us a subscribe. It lets you see when our videos come out at least once a week, every episode of this. And then we have extra stuff like when Saul does his Saul Play series, and then other things that we are, still have cooking in the plans, like our bonus episodes and stuff. But consider going down there, and we like to hear from you down in the comments below about what you think on every video. This video in particular, we're going to be covering emulation and some of the stuff that's going down with it. If you want to listen to us on audio format, you can always find us on Google Play Music, all of the podcast services. I always mention that one because no one else does. Everybody wants to talk about iTunes. Well, I will say, though, if you find us on iTunes, consider giving us a review. Helps people find us, and it lets us know what we are doing right, what we're doing wrong. I actually haven't checked those in a while, so I'm going to go do that since I keep spouting that off. I've just been busy. Hadn't thought about it lately.
Yeah.
We are also on Patreon. If you want to support the show, you can go over there and give us $1, $3, or $5. For $1, you get to just support us. $3 and above, you get a chance to win one of our cool custom cases that we make, and Mr. Saul is venturing into. You've already posted it on the Twitter, boy.
Okay, yeah, I guess you're true.
He's venturing into. You will see more about what he's making.
Probably on Friday next week.
We will see, but he's venturing off into that. So if you've not seen our custom cases, go check them out. You can get a chance to win one of those every month. All of our patrons at the $3, $5 tier do that. And then also, one thing that we're going to do for the first time with this video, because of Patreon being up in that way, the $3 and above tier get their name put on the patrons list at the very end of the episodes before we go to the complete outro. So if you want to look around for that, spot your name if you support us, we really appreciate it. It does a lot for us, helps us keep doing this without having to dig too terribly far into our own pockets, which is great. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Saul?
Yes.
What have you been playing this week, and what are you going to be playing whenever we get to, we'll cover that when we get to the drop. How about that? So what have you been playing this week?
So a lot of Dead Cells. Probably 30 hours, I would think. I would estimate. But it's been fantastic. If you haven't played Dead Cells, I highly recommend you go play it. You can now read the updated review on IGN, since we all know what happened this week with that.
Did they post the updated?
Yeah, it's 9.5 instead of 9.7, which was somewhat odd, but I understand it. Different person, different review. But yeah, Dead Cells a lot.
Non-plagiarized?
Yeah, it's a non-plagiarized. And these are my words, not somebody else's. But other than Dead Cells, a game of Rocket League here and there. But other than that, really it. I can't really think of much more, but Dead Cells has had a lot of my time, and it's going to have a lot more time today too.
Oh man, yeah, that's all I've done too. So No Man's Sky is still in my rotation, still fun, having fun with that, getting closer to that platinum, very close to it currently. So I have a couple more things I got to nail down, and then I've been playing. Dead Cells is like, oh man, it is so good. Oh, we didn't mention you can find us on Discord, so if you want to come have a conversation with all of us,
about
you can
Dead
hear
Cells.
some of this stuff in more real time, but. Yeah, it's so good. I've been talking about it on Discord with everybody a lot, but the game is just so freaking fun. It's, I'm not always a fan of roguelikes, mainly because, the roguelike has to have a really good pool of giving you a sense. It's going to be fun, right? It's just got to be good, fun, moment-to-moment gameplay, but it's also got to do enough to give you that sense of, like, after every run, you do feel like you really did earn something that's going to, or worked towards at least earning something that's going to eventually help you in a
good progression system with the game.
And yeah, in a future playthrough.
Definitely what Dead Cells has is a good progression system.
Last night is the closest I've gotten to running through every boss in one run. I was only one boss short.
How many bosses is there?
4, from what I can tell.
Oh, okay, wow. So that means that there's been a couple of times now where I've gotten to the halfway point in the game. Didn't even realize it.
Oh yeah, Timekeeper and Concierge.
Yeah.
There's the King is I'm fairly positive the final boss. That's the only one I haven't fought.
Gotcha.
And that area I got to last night was crazy. But
and these aren't really spoilers for those that are concerned. This game doesn't really have a story.
It doesn't have a story in the traditional
rooms.
sense. Yeah, it's kind of like what Saul compared it to earlier, which was pretty good. Is that it has like a very Bloodborne-esque thing. There's rooms you can find that have like little tidbits of information that you can find written down. You can find bodies and like notes from hanging bodies and stuff from like king's orders and stuff like that where it goes through. It's a pretty interesting setup for that in particular. I mean, I like the way that they go about doing that because it's like, okay, there is a bit of a story. There's something going on, but we're just not trying to beat you over the head with it because in this particular game, it's one of those instances of the gameplay being just king. I will say I think a story, like a real campaign, I would have totally balled through. I would have lucked at. But there is really something fun specifically about running through, trying to get as far as you can, sometimes as quick as you can.
And then hoping what new combinations of items you'll get.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really good.
And re-rolling for your forges and stuff as you keep going through, and you can reforge your item as a plus item or give it different attributes because they have that. That's something else that's cool. I like that there's random things you can get, like you have a sword that can shoot an arrow out in front of you or cast an arrow above at a 45-degree angle, which again helps the way that you play. If you've never played a roguelike and you have even the slightest bit of interest in Dead Cells, I think it is probably, of all the roguelikes I've played and enjoyed, it is the best example of one that can get you in early. The gameplay is very fast and very fun. It can be a little slower, but still, I mean, overall, it's a really fun game. So me and Saul have just been, harping on it all week, just how much we love it. So it's
there's a great sense of speed in that game too, in which if you feel like you are
and weight too, because that's the one thing I talked about not liking the heavy weapons as much as you do. But I will say that I actually thought that the heavy weapons have a good sense of weight behind them. I just don't. I prefer to be nimble. Whereas you mentioned that you like to be heavy in comparison, right?
No. I like the great sword or the ultra sword or whatever it's called, the claymore. I like that a lot, but I like how fast I can actually go through the game because my favorite combination is the daggers, twin daggers. That the third hit's always a crit.
Yes, the twin daggers are very good.
Yeah, that's by far my favorite.
The balance blade's good. The assassin's blade is okay. It depends on how you play, though. It's really a game that has a little bit of something for everything.
And how you feel like you want to play, because every playthrough can be different.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead. This isn't going to be counted as reader mail, but we were already kind of talking about Dead Cells because I knew we were going to talk about it so much. Dan, Mr. Dan, I'm not going to, he's on Twitter, whatever. Dan Al has read. May have said that wrong. Apologize if I did. He said he missed reader mail, but this doesn't matter. I'm just going to go ahead and throw it in here because I like it. He says that he hoped that we discussed Dead Cells, and I was like, trust me, it's all we've been playing, so it's going to get discussed. But he's particularly saying that it's blown him away, and that it's he said a trilogy of sprite-based action platformers in 3 weeks. Chasm, Dead Cells, and Death's Gambit. I'd be interested in which speaks to you more. I'm going to come back to which speaks to me more after I get a little bit more in. So I was excited for Chasm, like a lot excited for Chasm. And then Dead Cells came up, and there's things about Dead Cells art style that I was like, okay, I'm gonna hop into this a little more, and it didn't hurt that No Man's Sky was really just zapping away my time. But I bought Chasm with the intent of playing it. Dead Cells came out. I got weirdly hyped on it more. I started it, and I was like, oh, I can't play both of these side by side. So I'm going to play Dead Cells probably at least until Death's Gambit comes out, and I'll probably continue to play more if it's still fun and I've got more to do. We'll see. I've been playing only it, so we'll see how far I go there. But Death's Gambit looks amazing to me, and it does have a more traditional campaign. And I like that idea. It's almost more like what I want from a side-scroller Souls-like game to an extent than even Salt and Sanctuary, even though I did like Salt and Sanctuary.
Yeah, Salt and Sanctuary I liked a lot. It's just the character models look real goofy. Like,
yeah,
something about them.
They're unique. I'll give them that. It's a very you see it, but also the sprite art for Death's Gambit looks amazing.
It does.
But going back, so right now I got to play Chasm. I still haven't, but I do have it on Vita. And that might be. It depends. If I can play both of them, I can maybe do it by playing Chasm only on my Vita at night before I go to bed. And because it's the Vita, it'll automatically feel different than when I'm playing Dead Cells on PS4. I will see if I can kind of pull that off. But I'll get back with you after Death's Gambit for sure and see if I can throw in some Chasm and see which one specifically speaks to me more after playing it. From an initial standpoint, Dead Cells always kind of, once they actually finally showed it off, it just looks so fun that it spoke to me in a gameplay stance. So I think I'm going to stick with that one for the time being, but Death's Gambit looks really good. I'm only disappointed by the fact that none of these games are on Vita besides Chasm. I wish that Dead Cells would have been on Vita. I'm a little jealous of the people playing it on Switch, but I want them sweet, sweet trophies. So,
dude, I'm telling you, I have like got it on Switch. Like, it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be great.
So, what's going on with Switch? Are you playing on Switch currently,
No.
or are you
No, I'm
playing
playing
on
on
PS4
PS4
until you just get to the
I'm probably
point
gonna
where-
buy it on Switch.
I thought you said you did already.
No, I said
Okay.
this is gonna be the first time I think I'll ever buy a game twice or whatever.
Okay, I could see
So-
that. Roll through it and then just have something fun to play. Because, dude, I actually say this on a flight or something like that. Dead Cells would be awesome.
Dude, just sitting there like watching TV and like or Netflix or whatever, and then playing Dead Cells is gonna be cool.
I feel like I need to focus on a little more than that. But I don't know. We'll see, because Death's Gambit looks awesome. So I'm really hoping that as much as Dead Cells has surprised me, that Death's Gambit ends up doing the same thing for me. But I will get back to you on that, or we both will.
Hey, I probably won't play Chasm, honestly. With
I can see you skipping over that, but at least if nothing else, we can see where we both think. Cause are you going to pick up Death's Gambit?
For sure, yeah.
Okay,
That's what
so
I was going to say is that between Divinity and Death's Gambit at this month and Spider-Man next month and Red Dead the month after that with Call of Duty and all that other stuff, it's going to be rough.
I got you.
But speaking of Death's Gambit, we have the drop. And for those that don't know, the drop is this week's current releases. All these will drop down on Tuesday, or unless otherwise stated. And Death's Gambit, of course, first one on the list for PS4. I will say that if you are the least interested in this game, there is a streamer that goes by the name of Lobos Jr., Lobos Jr., Jr. Really cool guy, really good Dark Souls streamer. He plays Dark Souls, the series from Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and he always runs mods on all the Dark Souls games he plays on PC to make it an interesting take. And he did a developer commentary while he played the game on Twitch, and then developers watched him and talked to him on Discord or Skype while he did it, and it was really good, and it offers some good insight into the game. Next up, we have Detective Gallo for PS4.
Which does it almost look like Darkwing Duck? Like,
It kind of does.
something about the way the art piece right there is trying to look like is funny to me.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out what I don't know. They're like bacon, but a plant at the same time.
Maybe.
Doggone Goffin for PS4. Doggone Goffin, yeah. Tongue twister there. Domino Craft for PSVR. Man, what is going on with me today? Guns, Gore, and Cannoli 2.
Oh, man. How did
For
I miss the
PS4.
first Guns, Gore, and Cannoli? That's a name
it's
right
a
there.
masterpiece.
I love it.
We have Hero Defense for PS4. That's out on the 16th of this month. We have Persian Knights, Sands of Wonders for PS4. That's out the 17th of this month.
Why does that look like it's trying to be Prince of Persia?
I thought the same
Text.
thing. Yeah. We have Phantom Doctrine for PS4. State of Mind for PS4, out the 15th. Super Knight Riders for PS4. Terratech for PS4. Treadnoughts for PS4, out the 17th as well.
Okay.
Vroom Kaboom for PS4.
Is it car combat?
Something like that. So,
Good name.
Who knows? Wailing Heights for PS4. And the last one on the list, we have The Walking Dead, the final season for PS4. Interesting that these are all digital this week. We have no retail releases, and we have no Vita releases.
Which the final season is just the first episode of the final season, right?
I would assume so.
Yeah, because I don't think I've seen any other episodes. So I'm fairly positive that's right.
Yeah, it doesn't say episode 1 specifically.
Well, I mean, so day one, the same thing. Because scroll up. Does it say digital only? Yeah. Huh. That's interesting.
So it doesn't say episode 1. It doesn't mention it in the description either. So that is weird.
I'm not sure then, because I don't play the. I mean, I like the Telltale games. All right, I still think that there's a lot they need to do, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
But Brett, why don't you hop into the weekly news?
The weekly news is a little interesting this time around, but let's roll through it. So QuakeCon happened this week, as most of you know. I'm sure that y'all have seen some of the stuff that we're about to cover, but let's see. Fallout 76 is gotten a slew of new information, so it looks like they've talked about, and really this is pretty in-depth, so if you want to check it out, I didn't want to put it all on here and go through it. If Fallout 76 is interesting to you, or if any of these things sound interesting to you and you've been on the fence, go check out these posts that they have. Basically, it's Todd Howard, everything that he went into detail on, but it covers things like how PvP specifically works. Like it'll be something that the player who's getting attacked can choose not to engage in, and if they choose not to engage and run away, they can still be killed, but if they get killed, they don't lose anything. Because they did not engage back. And if they die, the person who killed them becomes wanted on the map, becomes a red star, and becomes an event for all other players to see.
Yeah.
And he has a bounty on his head, and the bounty on his head comes from his own money,
Yeah.
which is cool.
It is.
I like that system. And it also, I mean, so people who really just want to test their skill could just go grief just to grief, because it's like, oh, well, now it's an extra thing
Right.
for me. See
Now
how long I can survive.
Exactly, yeah. Now it's me versus the world.
Yeah, which is and I also think it's just a good way to try and keep some people from griefing who would otherwise do it if there was no repercussion.
Right.
He talked about the death penalty and the way that will work. So when you die, you will only lose junk, and junk is the same in 4. It's only stuff that that goes towards building and helping you upgrade items. So it's still important. It goes whenever you die. It falls on the map. And other players can pick it up, but if you get there before them, you can pick it back up. And as far as respawning goes, you can respawn on any point you want. That's like, I think it's, I don't know if it was bases or what, or you can choose to restart at the Fallout 76 shelter, or you can pay to go somewhere else, but it costs different depending on how far you are from it.
Okay, makes sense.
Interesting thing. And then they also go a little bit into the way that VATS will work in real time. The one thing that I gleamed off of that was interesting to me is that to begin with, you will not be able to select the body parts.
Yeah, it's
but
weird.
you will be able to eventually.
Right.
It's just something you have to build towards. So he says that 80% of the game is the Fallout players know and love, while the other 20% is all new. I actually had a conversation with someone at work the other day that said, or actually no, it wasn't even work. It was Joe. Joe's the one who said that if you looked at it, if you liked Fallout, then you're not going to like 76. I don't quite believe that, but at the same time, I don't know if this 80-20 is as honest either. It's probably more like 60-40.
Right.
Because this is going quite a different way with Fallout.
Yeah, I think that just of what they have shown us so far with QuakeCon, that's not that, unless this game is literally massive, that's way more than 20% that's changed.
Yeah. I mean, well, it depends on what they mean by all new, right? Because the other 20%, like, are they calling the 20% that's new also?
I think they mean mechanically.
Yeah, that's what I think too, or even mechanically / content to an extent, because you know the way content will be given to you.
Yeah, so
but
it's weird. But on this next article we have here, let's at the end we'll actually do one of our reader mail questions. One we normally say for reader mail, but it fits it so well since. It's about what we're going to go into.
Because actually we have another one that's going back into Dead Cells, and I'm going to work that in as well.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so yeah, we'll do it after this one. But Doom Eternal was also shown in depth at QuakeCon, revealing a grappling hook on the shotgun, which I'm not going to lie, it looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, it did.
A refined but similar fast-paced gunplay for those of you who were wondering about that, which, you know, is not that different from what we're seeing from, like, Rage 2. And even more demons. They promise there's going to be about twice the amount of demons per area, which is pretty crazy, but I guess that makes sense with where do you go in a game that's about killing demons? Well, you kill more demons. But the game will apparently allow players to take control. This is really interesting. To take control of a demon and invade other players' campaigns in a rather Dark Souls style move.
Yeah, now that sounds just amazing. What
a weird idea for a first-person shooter too, but really cool. And I wonder how it's going to work out, because I don't know if you remember this in Dead Space. I actually like the basic idea of multiplayer in Dead Space 2. It's just it wasn't implemented well, but it was like kind of like maybe even what you'd consider Dead by Daylight, where there were groups of survivors who were like all Isaac Clarke looking, but you know, engineers or whatever, and then the rest of the people played. Basically, it was like team deathmatch against one team being the Necromorphs and having special powers but no weapons. But they could, and that was cool. I like that idea. So if it's kind of like that, even though that was still third person, but the ability to take over what the enemy would be and go into someone's world and see how it's actually going to work sounds interesting.
It does.
And I assume that being a demon will be in first person, but it'd be even crazier if it was in third. I don't know how that would. It's possible.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird for sure. I'm looking forward to it though.
Yeah, I want to see more about that. But it's a cool move. The one thing that actually did disappoint me, but we'll see if they're going to go into further detail about it. But the game will be dropping Snap Map, which was the first game's level editor system that they had that allowed players to create and publish their own user-generated content. That's going to be kind of a sad thing. They said that they're doing this or dropping it in favor of actual DLC and post-game like launch content. I much preferred the idea of the Snap Map thing, because I don't know if you remember, but one of the first games that ever got modded before mods were even really a thing is Doom.
Yeah.
And one of the things about Doom is that people have forever just made their own Doom levels and played through it. So Doom has this like history, this long-running history of just letting people, or not even letting, but just being designed in a way that people can go in and make their own stuff and kind of just endlessly play it by doing what they want. Now, I know some people were kind of frustrated by Snap Map because it wasn't as in-depth as they were hoping it would be. I was hoping that instead of dropping it, they were going to double down on it and really expand it to be what people wanted. That still may be what they're doing, but they're not calling it Snap Map anymore. I have to just kind of wait and see more. The way that they said it makes me believe that we won't have it at all, but I really think that'd be I'm not going to say a misstep. It would just be a disappointment.
Right.
Because I did play a couple of the Snap Map levels, and I thought they were kind of cool.
Well, we have Mr. Noble6 on Twitter. He wants to know what our thoughts are on the game. I think it looks fine. I still need to go and finish the first one. I still have it downloaded on my PS4. But I think it looks fine. Like, it looks good. Like, it looks like what I would expect the second Doom to look like, with some new cool stuff in it too. So I definitely will be picking this up.
Yeah, I think it looks great. The first Doom has got a cool story, even though it's buried in a bunch of stuff. But I actually kind of like that setup where you're going around and you're looking at computer files and stuff. And finding those was always really cool. The way that the game actually played, I loved. One of my favorite things, I talk about Doom all the time, and I think it's pretty evident that it'll be in this one again, is the rhythm at which Doom wants you to play it. So you want to fall into a rhythm of like, and you can go even more if you just really know what you're doing, and depending on how you want to play. But there's a rotation you're going to go through. So it's like you'll shoot this guy so that you can get this type of ammo. You'll melee this guy so you can refill the ammo that you shot this guy with. And then you'll chainsaw the next one to get like a different energy thing. I love that idea of having a real reason to do each one to fill different things back up.
Right.
I think that's a cool system. And seeing it come back in this one, it was just, the gunplay is really fun and smooth in that game. If they find a way to still keep the story somewhere mixed between giving you some of it up front while also letting you find some of it, I think that'd be cool. But man, one thing I noticed, but they've confirmed that they were running on a really high-end PC. In the gameplay you watched, right?
Yeah.
Dude, the draw distance was insane.
It was, yeah.
And I'm a little
like when he walked on the elevator scene, when he saw all the way across the space station, how clear it was. That's impressive.
Now, don't get me wrong. I knew that. I was like, I know that deep down in my head right now that this is not running on a PS4 Pro or even Xbox One X, but I really wish it would have been.
I'll probably end up playing it on PC, even just because of how well the first Doom is on PC. And of course,
well, I'll give it to both of them. They're 60 frames per second across the board minimum. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So, and that's kind of almost a requirement. That's why I think it's so weird to put Doom on Switch when Switch can't hit that 60 frames per second. You remember how much work
did it
they
not
had
hit the 60 frames?
No.
Oh, I thought it did run at 60 frames.
No, they had to drop it down to 30 on Switch, and that was because of the fact that the Switch, your processor is what makes, when you're rolling through, which I mean, definitely the way they do stuff is a little different anyway, but specifically the power of your processor is what determines how many frames you can use. And when you're using a mobile processor, for sure, you're not going to hit 60 and keep any form of even similar graphical.
It's your processor and your RAM too. Don't forget about RAM.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent. What was that? Discord,
yeah.
I got you. I think it looks good though, and I'm waiting to see. I will probably still buy it day one like I did the first game, but we'll see, because there's a lot. It depends on when it's coming out, because we still didn't get a release date, which is probably smart, because I don't think it comes out until next year. Which, I mean, why give you a release date now if you don't need to? But why show it? Considering that Bethesda's been doing this thing, I don't know why Bethesda only gives it to Fallout, but the treatment of, well, we're going to show you the game and then release it in a matter of months. Now, I know that their E3 had a mixture of things where they were trying to show a bunch and feel like they had enough to later talk about. I'm not sure, but I wish to an extent that they would have done the same thing with Doom Eternal. They could have just announced it at QuakeCon, but they were trying to make their E3 baller, so I get it. Let's see. Next up, Saw. You may like this. I don't know if you have it pre-ordered, but Divinity Original Sin 2's entire first act is now available for PS4 players who have pre-ordered the game. The estimated amount of content is 20 to 30 hours, and that progress will carry over to the full release when it drops on August 31st. Sand Coffin, I know that he was getting 2 dates for some reason. I don't know what was going on with that, but that's a Friday release, which is also interesting.
Yeah, and
for a game like
it's a Friday I think I have off too, so it is, yeah. So that's
going
to be even better.
Did you pre-order digital? Because I know you're normally a digital person.
I hate the way pre-order digital works, just because I'm so accustomed to how everybody else works, and that's
pay off.
Like, I mean, I don't want to like buy it all. I don't know how much it is. I don't know if it's 40 or 60. I would assume 60, but it could be 40. But yeah, I would rather like, maybe now that I know this, I'll go pre-order it specifically, because I'm gonna buy it regardless of the price, if it's 40 or 60. The first, I would say that the first chapter could be a little bit longer than 30 hours, depending on how quickly you figure things out.
I think that's also I think that if you really, really kind of get a good grasp of what you're doing and roll through without exploring a lot, you could probably get through quicker. But I don't know, because I didn't play the first Divinity, even though I like the idea.
Divinity 2 has no quest markers. You literally, like, if somebody tells you to go talk to this person, you have to go find them. It's like what I heard people describe Morrowind as in some points, where there's no quest markers in Morrowind. Given I didn't like Morrowind, so I didn't play much of that to know.
Shame.
But yeah. But like, yeah, it's kind of rough in terms of like what you have to do. And the first chapter, you get put on this island that's a prison, And to get off that island, there's a couple different ways from what I remember. But there is one way. I had to look it up because I was like, I've talked to every single NPC in this village, and I cannot figure out what to do.
Because you've played this on PC already.
Yeah,
you just want to play it again on PS4?
Yeah, like 60 to 70 hours in on PC, and I'm like midway through Act 2.
Why the? I mean, this is more of a curiosity thing for me. Just because of trophies?
Just because of trophies, yeah.
I didn't know if because they adapted the way that the game plays with the controller on consoles.
I actually like the mouse and keyboard better. I like the click and the
Jonathan loved the first game, and he said he liked the way that they adapted the controls to work with the controller.
Yeah, and see, that's what I'm curious to have and play, because I'm also curious at how it's going to run, because even on my PC, which is a little bit stronger than a PS4 Pro, I still get dips every now and then, so I'm curious about the performance more than anything.
And it makes me wonder if that's because of optimization, because they are a smaller studio, but Divinity 1 did really well for them.
Oh yeah, dude. Dude, I always tell people it's literally like you're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I see. All right, let's see. PlayStation announced they have sold 525.3 million PS systems worldwide, which is pretty crazy. In light of this, they have announced a new highly limited edition PS4 Pro system, though not as highly limited edition as the 20th anniversary edition, but similar to that 20th anniversary edition that they did earlier this gen. The system will include a metal plate that shows what number out of the 50,000 units that they're making you have, which is a cool thing. If you remember, the 20th anniversary edition was limited to like somewhere around 12,800 or something like that, maybe even 13,000, but it was very limited. So I know some people are a little freaked out like this is not enough, but I promise you, this is going to be so much better than trying to be one of the only people to get a console that only has 13,000 units. So still going to be tough. So good luck for all those who want it. But the system will have a 2 terabyte hard drive out of the box, which is a nice touch. A deep translucent blue with copper detailing on the PS logo on the top of the system and on the PS4 logo on the front top cap part. A matching translucent controller and a deep blue PS camera to boot. The system will be available for order at different retailer websites that they have not completely gone into detail of. I'm hoping we get that Monday. They say to click through to the website and it shows which ones are participating, but that information's not there yet. And will be available on August 24th for a price of $499. They didn't really say whether that's a pre-order or that you're already buying it. I think that you're just buying it and it'll get shipped to you, but we'll see. I've, after much consideration, determined that I'm going to try and get one, and if I do get one, I'm just going to sell my Monster Hunter World Pro.
Dude, it makes no sense for that thing to be that loud during No Man's Sky with as new as it is.
It's not even about that. For me, it's just that I was like, look, I've got the 20th anniversary edition. It would feel so wholesome for me to also have the Pro that has that, because
I'm holding out for that 100 million version.
100. I guess it'd be.
I mean,
a billion.
Yeah, 1 billion.
That's a while away, buddy.
All right, we'll get there. We'll get there one day.
525.3 million consoles sold in the 3 or 4 years they've been alive is pretty insane, really. And you consider how much gaming has grown. It's a real good hit of like how big gaming has really come, but also how big they were with PS2, because that's a big reason those numbers are up that high. Saul, this is interesting, and I'm curious what you think about it. EA's VP of Strategic Growth recently stated in an interview that the company has created a quote, moral compass, end quote, that is designed for future live services to be designed and tested in ways that will help the company remain, quote, pillars of fairness, value, and fun, end quote.
Good for them. We'll see if it actually works.
Now, I will say this. This comes off the heels of Battlefront 2. So everybody knows what happened with Battlefront 2, the big fiasco they had there. They ended up pulling them completely from Battlefront 2 microtransactions because they were pay to win, and they got a lot of flack for them. Then they ended up reintroducing them 6 months later as just cosmetic items.
Right.
They've introduced them back. But basically, they really had to do a 180 on that. But we already see the effects of this moral compass. I would imagine this has been in place for a little while, because you already see the effect that they got on there bleeding into the way they're handling Anthem. They are being very clear with Anthem that there will be absolutely no pay to win. They have not come out and said there won't be any loot boxes, but if so, I imagine there'll be like Fortnite loot boxes where they're just a box of cosmetics.
Right.
And then you see Battlefield 5, which is going even harder, and they're purporting it to be we already know that they've done away with their season pass thing, and that everything moving forward in the game will just be free. An interesting move. Definitely because it's DICE. It's the same developer, which is even more like, okay, yeah, they're trying to do something here. But also the fact that Battlefield 5 will not have any loot boxes at all. So it sounds like there's still going to be microtransactions, but you'll know exactly what you're getting up front on Battlefield. That's interesting. But I don't know. I thought that because you're going to, well, you got Battlefield 1, didn't you?
Yeah, and I might get Battlefield 5.
Okay. I didn't know where you stood on it. I mean, I know that we both kind of are on the, we're willing to give Anthem a chance.
Well, it depends. I think I keep seeing stuff that the Black Ops 4 beta, open beta is this weekend. This current weekend. You guys listening, I'm not talking about next weekend. I'm talking about the weekend that just happened. And for whatever reason, Sony's store right now is acting weird, so I can't get to it. It's like even on the app, if I try to bring the store up on their app, it's just
Is that what you were kind of looking frustrated about a second
Oh,
ago?
dude, it's making me so mad. It's like, why is it pulling up the full website store within the app? It just doesn't make sense right now. And then if you go to their website and if you go to betas, it says this is not a thing. Like it says I'm in the wrong spot for something. It's just not working. And now it's working. They have 2 up right now. So
That's so weird.
Yep. I don't know what's going on with that in terms of what I keep seeing online. It still may be part of the closed beta. We have to pre-order.
Maybe.
Screw that.
And you have to get an actual code to use. That might be the situation. Okay, Salt, Child of Light 2 may have been teased, and this was shown in great detail by Mr. Liam. He zoomed in on it, and then I zoomed in even more because I wanted to. Child of Light 2 may have been teased in a recent screenshot showing off Child of Light running on the Nintendo Switch. The background features what looks to be a paper packet, almost like a presentation packet, or like a script, though. I mean, I guess it could be a script, but it says Child of Light 2 just big right there, centered on the paper, and it's back in the back with a little bit of focus. It's got some blur on it, not like they did it on purpose, but they made it to where the focus is on that so that you can kind of see that.
Right.
People were quick to see it and go kind of crazy on it. We'll see. Child of Light 1 was a good game. It's very cool. I hope the Child of Light 2 is smart enough to include a platinum this time around. But that's just for my own selfish wants.
I was like, don't forget, that's what Sony chooses, right?
Yeah, but man, you know, it's and people, I mean, different podcasts and different people have talked about it a lot. There's no rhyme or reason for any of that. I think it really is how much they're willing to push for it, because if a game like My Name is Mayo can get a platinum,
I know that, but
Child of Light can get a platinum.
The developers, though, I think it's Sony though that says.
No, don't be wrong. Sony needs to stop this purported, and nobody ever knows. It's just this weird thing, but you know, the rumor is that it's hard to get a platinum from Sony, but apparently it's not, because if you push on them hard enough, they still give you one.
That makes sense, and that's what it should be.
And I just think that the blame isn't on the developers as much. I mean, it's a mixture, right? The developers should have pushed harder for platinum, and I think that they will, because they got a lot of well, not a lot, but they got at least a vocal enough backlash that they go, oh, there are people that will buy the game because, like, there are people that will be more likely to buy the game day one just because we listened to them about putting trophies or a platinum trophy in. And that's a thing. I mean, to be fair, I'm one of those people. Like I'm more willing to give a game a chance if I'm like, well, there's a platinum, even if I don't like it, you know, or you know, if I buy it, I'm buying it with the chance of loving it and getting a platinum out of it. If I don't like it, oh well.
You're right.
You know, that's one of those weird things. Or sometimes it's one of those things where I don't love it, but it's not that bad of an experience, and I spent my money on it already, so I'm gonna go ahead and play it and get this easy platinum just because. Stuff like that. Personal. I know you've kind of been off of the platinum grind a bit.
Yeah.
What was the last game you platinum? Hellblade?
I think so.
It's been a long time. It's been almost a year.
Yeah, I want to say Hellblade was the last one.
Anyway, God of War's long requested and kind of rumored New Game Plus feature is finally coming on August 20, so that's about 4 months after the game release. That's not bad. I'm hoping, I think they've shown it off, but I didn't get to go back and look. I'm hoping that they've done some stuff to make it where you're not just literally rolling through the game again. I am curious as to how they're going to handle one particular element. And if you've played the game, you know what it is, and whether or not you'll start with it or not. That's just, who knows. No Man's Sky received another update fixing a large number of bugs and rebalancing some of the items and materials in the game. Sadly, this is also kind of messing up what I was doing to make money in the game, which are the whispering eggs outside of abandoned buildings. They've cut down on the number of them there, so you'll still probably be able to make a couple million in a short run, but I don't know what made them prompt to do it. They must have either just seen that people were making too much money, and that was easily a way of doing it, but oh well. So if you want to run that a little bit more and take advantage of those, and you've not yet updated, you may want to just play a little bit of single player by yourself, make a bunch of money, then update.
Destiny 2 was the last platinum I got.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. No Man's Sky. Let's see. Next thing up is Coolers. Cooler has finally been officially announced for Dragon Ball FighterZ, and this is after he was leaked around when the game launched. I don't know if you remember seeing that, but we hadn't heard anything solid about it since. But now there is a new trailer showcasing him in action, and it came at the end of their 2018 Evo trailer that they put out.
I still need to buy that game.
Oh, it's fun. I mean, I bought it. I played it as much as I wanted to. I traded it in.
Yeah.
That's what I do with fighting games. They're not games for me to keep.
I
just play them, roll through the story, and move on.
If I was to try to get good at a fighting game that's not Smash, it would be that one.
It's fun. And to be fair, I actually kind of wish I didn't trade it in just because I do want to smash down as Cooler. Like, the gameplay looks really fun from him. So,
good. Cooler's my boy.
A bit disappointingly, Darksiders 3 developer Gunfire Games says that the game will focus more on gameplay than story. I'm a little confused by this, and they don't go too much into depth. No, don't get me wrong, it's an action game, so there's always been a slightly higher focus on the gameplay than the story, but the story's always been there. And if they really...
I mean, it probably still is. It's just,
well, that's
they're probably just stating that with the amount of cinematic style games we got lately.
Maybe. It's an interesting thing to say, though, because the people who are most excited for this are people who are longtime fans of Darksiders, and it sounds like you're trying to tell them that this is going to be different than the other two Darksiders in terms of the amount of story.
No, it's an action-adventure game, so you're going to get action adventure.
Now, there will be story. But there's a lot of story that people want that right now they're worried this game will or will not touch.
I've heard people going into it thinking of God of War. Don't do that. You're just going to set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, don't go into it with God of War, the most recent one's expectations. If you just want to do some like God of War 3 story expectations, you'd probably be all right, you know. I mean, maybe not the grandiose scale, but still, Bethesda. This is going to be the last thing on here. Was wrapped up in a controversy. Oh, actually, there's one other thing.
We got one more that we're going to lead in the main topic with.
Yep, but Bethesda was wrapped up in controversy for a little bit after it appeared that they were trying to wrangle in the sale of games from their original purchasers. Bethesda's lawyers had sent a notice to an Amazon seller who was selling a sealed copy of The Evil Within 2 as new. The lawyers state that the game would not be covered under the first sale doctrine that usually covers the sale of used books and media. And when asked for a statement, Bethesda had this to say. Bethesda does not and will not block the sale of pre-owned games. The issue in this case is that the seller offered a pre-owned game as new on the Amazon marketplace. We do not allow non-authorized resellers to represent what they sell as new because we can't verify that the game has not been opened and repackaged. This is how we help protect buyers from fraud and ensure our customers always receive authentic new product with all enclosed materials and warranty intact. In this case, if the game had been listed as pre-owned, this would not have been an issue. Prior to that, end quote. Prior to that, there was a lot of speculation as to what was going on because it seemed like Bethesda...
That was our almost main topic.
Yeah. When it first happened, it was kind of like... And Bethesda didn't have a quick response, nor did the lawyers. It seemed like they were trying to come down on the used game market. They had a number that they sent the guy to call about it, and it seemed like they were going to be kind of doing a sweep on it. And initially, I was like, ballsy move. Very ballsy move. They are a big company. They have a lot of big name games
you can get away with a lot
that
of
they'll
stuff.
get away with, but I think some of their games wouldn't have fared as well if they were trying to do this.
Well, you heard about this got like talked about either today or late last night about their card game that's coming out soon. They said that they will not feature it on a console that does not allow crossplay.
Their card game.
Yeah, it's I don't remember what it was. I don't think it's the
Elder Scrolls Legends.
I don't think it's Legends. But yeah, they're basically calling. That's another person kind of calling Sony out about that because they said they're not going to put it on a system that doesn't allow crossplay. And it is on Legends. It is Legends. I mean,
yeah, that sounds right.
Only wants Elder Scrolls Legends on consoles with crossplay. So, and if you know anything about Bethesda and Sony, they haven't had a great past. There's a lot of stuff going on with them on Skyrim when it launched on PS3 because of the performance. There was stuff with them going on with Skyrim when it came back out as what was that called? The
Special Edition.
Special Edition, yeah, where you couldn't use external assets because Sony doesn't like the use of external assets on mods. They only want to be able to use internal assets.
Well, and actually, to be fair, initially Sony was saying no mods. And
that's even worse.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. And they were able to work it out to where there would be mods, but the mods required the use of existing assets in the game. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's the greatest thing of Sony, but at least they compromised in that particular situation. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. That particular situation was probably more of a back end, like, we don't want someone to figure out a way to exploit our console by putting these external assets on here.
That's still a cop-out. That doesn't make any sense.
I think the other side of that may be that what if a kid who plays Skyrim downloads a mod where all the assets are in there are like tits and ass?
That's not
and you just have a wall that looks like titties. And don't get me wrong.
That's not their fault. That's the parents' fault who bought an M-rated game for their kid. That's not something Sony should worry about.
Sure, but but even then, what if it's somebody who's
no, ever since they said for the kids is the reason they're not going to do crossplay, they're not going to get away with it.
Yeah, for Minecraft specifically. Now, to be fair, this was before Minecraft at that particular state.
I know. This is not something.
But there's a lot of things that could have been said. At the time, they may have been thinking, well, what if there's some weirdly... And I don't mean this in an offensive way, but what if there are people that are hardcore Christian that don't want to see this even as adults?
You're probably not playing this as you're not probably playing a werewolf simulator. I
don't know. Big Seth played it.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, mods are off in a tucked off section you wouldn't see unless you went looking for them.
Hard to say. Either way, I'm with you. And so Sony and Bethesda have butted heads a lot this generation. Yeah. It's interesting that Bethesda wants to take a stand because realistically, a free-to-play game like that really needs the bigger install base. Or actually, I'm not going to say the bigger install. It needs the biggest install base it can get, which it does by coming out on as many consoles as possible. And it's already on phones. Put it onto Xbox One, put it on the Switch, put it on everything you can. Because but realistically speaking, you're going to get the majority of your sales if you release on PlayStation 4. You're going to get the majority of your money off of PlayStation 4 by a numbers game. It should work out that way. It's interesting that they would do that. But here's what I would say of Sony: because look, all the mod thing, I can't even see a side of that is really, really important of like, okay, I just don't quite get why they're not letting mods happen, but they finally did let mods happen in a way. But this one, crossplay, I do get their stance, and they've basically come out and said it. That's my favorite thing about what Sean said is that they're listening and they're hearing the feedback. And
there's nothing you could favorite out of that sentence. That's the typical PR statement.
Yeah, but what the PR statement did prove is that the reason behind it was business motivated, which we already knew.
Right.
But they never illicitly said so. But what they said at the end of that statement from Sean is that they're listening, they hear the complaints, and
that's it.
They're hearing the feedback, and that they are what is it? They said that they're positive that they can come up with a solution that is better for the customers and for them as a business. And that goes to show you that there is a real a reason that you can look at and go, I understand this reason. That if I was Sony, just to try and play hardball, I don't know if you even could pull it off. But what if Sony could get in touch with Activision, Blizzard, right, and say, look, guys, we want to pay for you to completely port Hearthstone over to PlayStation 4.
That would be hilarious.
Dude, that would be a baller move on Sony's part just in terms of a response, right? Just be like, fine, we don't want your lesser card game anyway. We'll take the best-selling card game that there is right now.
Yeah, that would be hilarious.
That would be a baller move. Not that it's going to happen, but if Bethesda wants to play this hardball game and Sony had the ability, they could go back hardball too and be like, look, if y'all going to be assholes about it, we're going to do something.
I'm surprised that
it won't happen that way.
Hearthstone's not on PS4 already.
Yeah, I'm a little too, but at the same time, I think that the way the game's set up maybe works best for a phone. But I don't know.
Phone and PCs, yeah.
Even then, unless they're doing something crazy, Elder Scrolls Legends really looks like it's better fit for a touchscreen or a mouse and keyboard setup. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess you can do, I think about it, the Yu-Gi-Oh games from Game Boy days where you rolled through.
Yeah.
They could do it. They could make it work on a console.
Yu-Gi-Oh games on console.
That's what I'm saying. You could do it. It would be different, but I think that, who knows? I just think it's going to be interesting. At least it's turn-based. They don't got to worry about how much time it takes if somebody's playing on PC versus me on PS4. You know what I mean? But yeah. I think that's what Sony should do. They don't have the ability to control that.
I'm fairly sure Hearthstone has a timer for how long you can take a turn.
To an extent, it does. It has I think it's 60 seconds.
Isn't it like a little rope up there that's on fire, like a fuse?
Yeah. But you could adjust that for crossplay.
Yeah, possibly.
Where you give like extra 15 seconds or something to go.
Next up, though, we have Reader Mail. For those that don't know, if you follow us over there at Triangle SQRD on the Twitter or our Facebook page, Triangle Squared, a PlayStation Podcast, you can ask us a question each week when we post up a tweet or a post on Facebook.
And it's a group, to be fair. It's a closed group.
I don't have Facebook.
So he doesn't know that. But anyway, if you want to find us on Facebook, it's a closed group, Triangle Squared, PlayStation Podcast. Just request entry, and one of us, either me, not Saul, but either me, Josh, or any of the other people that are on there. I think it's me, Josh, and Blake are the only people that have the ability to approve people, but I have notifications to my phone, so just send it on over and join into the conversation.
I don't have a Facebook, so you won't see me on there, but I will be active on Twitter. And each Wednesday and Friday, we put up a reader mail tweet where you can ask us a question, and we'll respond to 3 of them on the show. And then all the ones we don't respond to get put into a reader mail episode that comes the very first Friday of every month. With that being said, we did answer our good boy Noble Six's question during the Doom Eternal talk. So we're going to go ahead and go over with Richard Rivera wants to know, what are your guys' favorite PSP memories? And Josh responds to that saying, if Crisis Core doesn't come up, you're lying. And that's exactly true. Crisis Core.
True.
Crisis Core is my favorite memory there.
I want to say, because he says memories, so there's a couple. I want to say the PSP, my favorite memory is tied actually to the system itself. It's not even tied to a game. And it's a weird thing, and my mom knows I've done this. I asked for it for Christmas, and I basically got told I was getting it for Christmas, so I knew she had it. And I looked around in the house for it, and I couldn't find it. So I was like, okay, it's got to be in her car. So Christmas Eve, I don't know what it was. I guess because in my mind I didn't believe she really got it for me. So I was like, I don't believe, because that was the first time I'd ever gotten a new console ever. I don't mean new in the sense of like, when it came out, because it was still about 8 months after it launched, but it was the first time I'd ever gotten a new in a box console that wasn't used. So I took my mom's keys and I went out to the car, and internet was different back then. It was around, but that wasn't the way you got information. So I was looking at pictures in a magazine that were, you couldn't quite see it well enough, but I was like, oh, this is cool looking. But when I opened that box, I opened the trunk, I found it, I opened it, I just pulled the system out, held it, and I was like awestruck, because I was like, dude, this is beautiful. It's weighty. It feels good. And don't get me wrong, I love my Game Boy SP. The PSP just craps all over the how it feels as a console. Definitely the original PSP, the fat PSP, was so thick and weighty, and it felt premium. And I was like, oh my God. And having that 480p but widescreen setup, I was like, this is incredible. And I remember that followed through. Right? I put it back up. I put it back in the box. I just went and I went to sleep. And when I woke up, my mom had it on the tree and everything. I opened it up. First game I popped in, Untold Legends, Brotherhood of the Blade. And dude, I love those types of games. And playing that on the system and it looking as good as it did at the time and playing as well as it did, I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah, well, my first PSP game was Rengoku.
Oh.
Not a good game.
Not a good game.
I got the sequel, too. Not a good game either.
Why would you get the sequel if you didn't like the first one?
Because as a kid or as I was younger, I thought that maybe they fixed everything I thought was a problem. Nope.
I see.
I thought you were going to tell me, though, that like she gave you the present early, because that made me think of a memory of when I was younger.
No, I did get my PS3 early, though, because she knew she couldn't hide it from me, and I'd already told her at that point that I did go sneak out and do that. And I told her about me taking the Kingdom Hearts game out and playing it on the Game Boy. I was a bad kid when it came to. I was not patient at all with presents.
When we wouldn't, I was similar, but like never that bad.
Yeah, she gave me my PS3 a week early.
Well, our parents, they always put our Christmas presents under the tree like 3 weeks before Christmas, and then they would slowly add stuff in behind it and stuff. But this was the year that the original DS came out, and I'll never forget it. Like, my friend Adam, he had come over and we were playing Super Mario 64 or Super Mario DS. It's whatever, Super Mario 64 on the DS. And I remember like telling my mom how much I wanted Super Mario and then the silver one. And then Seth wanted, I forgot what Seth wanted. He got something like a racing game or something. And then the blue one. And we opened parents at my mom's house on Eve. And then on my dad's house during Christmas morning. So 2 days before Christmas Eve, I'll never forget it. She me and Seth begged her enough to let us open one gift, and she always put our presents in bigger boxes than what they belonged in, so you couldn't guess what they were, or you couldn't like go there and feel them.
Yeah, classic move.
And she gave me one that was about, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. If you get like a sandwich or like wings at Domino's, it comes in this weird oblong box. It's like that, but a little bit bigger. And I remember opening up, and of course, she let us pick, and then she would say yes or no. She apparently didn't remember what it was because I opened up Super Mario 3D. I didn't have a DS. Or I said 3D, Super Mario DS. I didn't have a DS. So I was like, well, I now know she got me the DS, but now I can't play the stupid game. So I had to wait 2 more days to actually play the game. So
what's Seth open?
I forgot what Seth opened. Oh, I remember what it was. I don't remember what they're called. They're like these robots that had like wheels, and they would move forward and backwards, and like they were like is BattleBots? Is that what they're called? Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. He opened a big old BattleBot up.
That's cool.
But
that's a good one.
Anyways, yeah. So Crisis Core for me for sure, and then
Crisis Core is in there, and God of War. Playing the first God of War, and I was like, again, PS2 quality graphics was insane.
I really think that's the best. That's my favorite one because there's a lot of good ones, but that's my favorite.
What, Crisis?
Yeah,
Core?
Crisis
Yeah,
Core.
no, Crisis Core is amazing.
Or playing, coincidentally enough, for this episode, Crystal version on the PSP. So,
okay, actually, yeah, I'm gonna be real with you there too. Playing emulated games.
What's it called? Was it Soul Crystal? Or Clear Crystal? It was something weird, but it was a Game Boy. It was a mod of Fire Red that was Crystal.
What was it called? I had it.
It was on the modded PSP I had.
Yeah, it was the one that Seth gave you because I'm the one who told him about it.
Yeah, he gave it to me for birthday after he had it for like a year.
I can't remember what it was called.
Well,
it was a really cool one.
We'll come back to it since we have one more question left.
Liquid Crystal.
No, that wasn't it.
I swear to you that was what it was called.
I don't think so. We could do a quick Google search real quick and figure it out because
PSP was great, man. I still have one, just chilling. I don't ever play it, but
maybe it was. The first thing that popped up was Liquid Crystal ROM.
Yeah, that's it.
That is it. Yeah. That's the intro screen for it. Cool. But Sean, Mr. No Fade over on Twitter wants to know, what game and genre would you now say is the most popular? Is it still FPS or something else? That's a really hard question to answer.
Because I read that when he sent it in, and I tried going my gut, right? What really feels like it's taken over, and I think it's hard to say. I think it has to be like
it's most certainly Battle Royale.
Well, but Battle Royale can go a bunch of different ways, right? Because Battle Royale can be a first person and stuff like that. But I'm with you. You are right.
I would say whatever Fortnite is.
It's so new though.
Shooter.
I was gonna say third person shooter as a whole, yes.
Yeah.
I think if you want to narrow it more down, there's always sales and what's popular that way, but that's one game, right? I think if you want to look at it.
Like what I'm looking at is if I go to Twitch and I see what's popular. If I think of the biggest possible tournament you can have with the most money outcome is this game, and that would be Fortnite.
Yeah.
And if not Fortnite, League of Legends, Hearthstone, all these other games.
There are other ones,
it's
and
weird.
They go a bunch of different ways. But I kind of look at it as like which one's being seen the most, right? Because at the time when the first-person shooter on the turn of the 360 generation became the most dominant, like it was the most popular genre. It was also the most popular genre because almost every game that was coming out was a first-person shooter, right? Every developer had a exclusive, or every system had an exclusive first-person shooter they were trying to put out at the time. And when you look at it like that, I think that if you try and look at what's most popular right now, I think third-person action adventure is the most common genre. Even if maybe not popular in the traditional sense, but I think it's the genre that's chosen the most when choosing what kind of game to develop. Because you see it with like Uncharted, you see it with Horizon, you see it with The Order, you see it with Zelda. I mean, realistically, it's what would you consider Zelda? Third-person action adventure?
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild specifically is what I mean.
I mean, I would consider all of them that because there's RPG elements in them, sure, but
they are more about the adventure aspects.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I think I would say third-person action adventure. So
I think for the thumbnail, since we were talking about it, I think I'm literally going to grab a PNG of a PSP and I'm going to literally put the home screen for Pokemon Crystal on there. Since that's something that sounds fun.
Whatever. All right, well, I'm gonna sneak one more question in here because it's like the second half of Dan's question, and I did tell him that we hadn't recorded, so he had time to sneak one in there. And it's continuing on about the Dead Cells thing. So he says, "Do you think Dead Cells already being a PC success will cannibalize Chasm and Death's Gambit, or is it just a great time to be a fan of the genre? I bought Chasm for Vita, Dead Cells, and have pre-ordered Death's Gambit. I'm very happy with the timing. Thoughts?"
It's definitely how good the genre is doing right now. Because I think Dead Cells is going to be more successful than Chasm for sure, and I think that Death's Gambit will be as well. I think Death's Gambit has a lot going for it in terms of its fan base and potential fan base, and Dead Cells, like you already said, is already a PC success. It just left early access when it came out for this, but it's been out for a year beforehand.
Yeah.
And
it was so interesting. All the characters, like the Timekeeper had a different name. The Concierge was called the Unfinished One or something like that. Incomplete One.
Yeah, I was gonna say something real weird.
I think it's cool that they did that. Like the names are different.
Because it kept it new when it came out. When it left early access, it kept it new, which was really cool.
Well, I also think that the names were all kind of partially like the incomplete one. Like the game's incomplete. Doesn't matter what we name it right now. You know, it's a being.
That's actually though the Concierge doesn't really make a lot of sense though. Like, are we on top of a hotel? Did you ever think of that? Like what his name was?
But you know what a concierge is supposed to do? I mean, I get it, but they're more than just that. It is.
I know.
I think it's that they know where everything's going in the sense.
It's a silly name.
It is a weird name, though. I'm with you on that one. But I think that, the genre is doing fantastic right now. And I want to take that outside of just, because, earlier in the one, he mentions that they're all sprite-based. Well, yeah, sprite-based is the thing. But right now, Metroidvanias are just doing amazing. Like, not even just sprite-based. I mean, you look at them.
Well, and that is something like, the term Metroidvania is something that is like, if it's tagged as your game, it's like almost always going to sell at least well. Like,
well, because you can look at Dead Cells, but Dead Cells does have a lot of design elements of going back through a section once you get different things, and now you can go further in different directions. It does so in a slightly different way because it has roguelike on top of it, so you don't go backwards to it, but you come back to it in a new play, and you have new runes that you can get to new areas.
Well, I sometimes disagree with the name Metroidvania because this game's nothing like Metroid at all. I mean, apart from finding random power-ups, which is what you do in pretty much Castlevania anyways, this is more of a Castlevania. That's what I said yesterday.
Well, yeah,
it's a
and
perfect
they just
Castlevania game.
Yeah, to an extent. I think that there's a mixture of things, but you basically use Metroidvania because both of the games have very similar setups.
Right.
It's just normally depends on...
this game fits so well into the Castlevania genre.
That you wanted to say it's Castlevania. Yeah. But yeah, still, going into that genre type, not only do we have those 3 games coming out in basically a month's time, that's not even accounting for the fact that Guacamelee 2 is coming out.
Yeah.
Another Metroidvania that I'm going to just squash all over. I think that the genre is doing really well right now. It's kind of seeing a little bit of a revival. Bloodstained, I can't remember what they called it.
Curse of Moon and
Curse of the Night. Yeah, that one, or whatever it was. Symphony of the Night is the one that's going to be 3D. But the sprite-based one that they just did sold really well.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Castlevania
and it reviewed really well. People like that game. I think that the genre is just in a real hot spot right now. And I think that... Chasm, I don't know about. Chasm's been in development for so long. It does have the boon of being on the Vita, and it has the Vita community behind it, just supporting it because it's supporting the Vita, on top of being a genre that people tend to like. I think it's got that going for it. Dead Cells not being on there probably means that Chasm will have some success because of that. Also, it being cross-play is a nice touch. You can play on both. Dead Cells has been doing really well. Death's Gambit looks to be doing real well, and it has its own benefit of standing itself away from Dead Cells because of the fact that it does have a more traditional campaign that you're moving through, in a more traditional, like, going back and forth boss structure. There still is some play with death there, but not necessarily at a roguelike style. And then Guacamelee is going to be more of a traditional, you just move back and through, get new moves that let you go through the levels at different ways and get to parts that you previously couldn't reach. I think that the genre is just doing amazingly right now.
I hate websites like that.
Anyway, so that was the third one from Twitter. That was just an add-on because I told him to go ahead and do it. So that was our fourth one that we decided to throw in there. And I don't know why I keep clicking home on Facebook, but I'm going to go back and find this real quick. Give me just a second. We have one on Facebook from Mr. Corey, and it says, once I get back down to it, here we are. Yeah, I said here we are. Facebook.
Is it that far back?
No, Facebook does that dumb load thing where it half loads something else and then comes back. Oh. Anyway, Corey's question is... he says, question day, and I've got a good one. Brett and Saul, what is one game or console that you either got rid of, lost, or sold that you wish you would never have? Also, and this is like a 2-part question, but I'm gonna say it works. Also, what is one thing in gaming that you missed out on that you wouldn't have, i.e. a console you never got to play or an event that was centered around a certain game or system that you couldn't go to? I think that this somewhat comes from the people talking about, we've been talking about in the Discord about the fact that a lot of people are mad that some games that have already been announced aren't coming to Switch and they're staying around on the 3DS instead. And, the argument from Corey, and I do understand the argument, is why get, like, all the people who got rid of their 3DS to get a Switch, why get rid of a console? Never do that. There's a number of reasons.
There's a lot of reasons.
It comes down to whether you really think you're going to play it enough to justify having it laying around when it's worth potentially $80 or
financial
whatever
reasons.
it is.
You may need that extra money to be able to buy it.
Yep, you may need it to get the Switch in the first place, and you feel like you'd rather stick with the new stuff than keep playing the old stuff. And then, of course, the risk. Keeping the 3DS, no one expected there to be this many games that were coming out throughout the Switch's lifetime that were still only on 3DS. The fact that Luigi's Mansion is going to be a 3DS exclusive, the fact that Samus Returns was a 3DS exclusive, the fact that these are, and I'm specifically saying from a Nintendo standpoint, right? the conversation in the Discord started because of a Persona game or a Shin Megami Tensei game. Actually, is what it was.
No, it's Persona 2.
It was Persona. Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Persona Q2, I think, is what they're called.
Anyway, so that game is not coming to Switch. Well, that's not necessarily up to Nintendo, but I do think it's odd that Nintendo have not been just doing the cross-generational thing.
Persona Q2.
To do it for the sake of having it on both so that you keep the 3DS people happy because they are the people that have kept you afloat for years now. But also have the Switch people have the ability to play it. But yeah, Corey, I think it's interesting you say that, but I will say this. I do always have consoles that I wish I wouldn't have got, or things that happened to. One of those examples is that when we were kids, we had the Sega Genesis that would hook into the Saturn. So the way it was set up is it was a Sega Genesis that had a side port that you could take this thing off, and the Sega Saturn that you could buy had a top port that went up, and you could slot the Sega Genesis into the top of it, and you made like a dual console, and it was awesome. I mean, in terms of it being one of the most interesting things I've seen, I think Sega did a lot of that. The fact that you could slot other Sonic games into the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge was interesting to me. I love that idea. What ended up happening is that at the time off, my brother was real crazy on drugs and living on his own. He managed to get a hold of it from our house, from my grandfather's house where we always kind of just kept it, took it to his house. Something was something was shaking around in the Saturn, but it still fully worked. And he took the whole thing apart, lost all the parts, and couldn't get it put back together. So we just don't have it anymore. And it was more about a cool thing. I still have a Genesis, but it's not that one. It's just the 8-bit Genesis or whatever it was instead of the 16-bit or 32, whichever it was that was on the Saturn top on. I thought that was cool. And as far as well, go ahead, Saul. What do you think on this one?
Well, in terms of consoles, I really like a 3DS was the one I ever regretted getting rid of because it's such a good handheld. So really, realistically, only that because we still have our Super Nintendo at Seth's house somewhere, and that's the one that it's like he better not sell that. He better give it to me before he does that. But in terms of games, there's been multiple games that I've sold and rebought and sold and rebought. That's why I just buy digitally now.
Yeah, see, I can't say the 3DS in good conscience for myself because it's a handheld that had great games. It's not a great handheld itself, in my opinion. I'm not projecting that on you, but like the Vita is a great handheld, but
I would argue that the 3DS is better than the Vita because the amount of quantity of the games that you had that were better.
Well, I'm using that's why I say the way I worded it the way I was is that the Vita is a great handheld on the handheld only thing. This isn't going
so you
into
mean specs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the 3DS is not a good handheld, really. It just happened to have a lot of good games. It's actually kind of a crappy system in a lot of ways.
The screen resolution's garbage, which is crazy on how games like Fire Emblem Awakening and Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask look so great on it.
Yeah, really, and the screens have got bad color representation, definitely on the XL. They kind of look washed out, and they stretched them so the pixel density is worse because they didn't give it a higher thing. Yep. Which, I mean, I get how you're going to do that, but you're just making the screen bigger. But also the fact that they were so raggedy feeling. Definitely the XLs, man.
Well, the XLs had to have like that weird hinge thing because of the way like they are all molded or something, and like
I'm talking about the fact that you could squeeze it and it go ring.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah,
I hated that.
Yeah,
so, the original 3DS still didn't feel that premium to me, but it was the best 3DS they came out with in terms of general feeling. It felt solid. Yeah, it was uncomfortable because it was squared off. The XL was way more comfortable, but it felt weak. So in that sense, I mean, like I think the Vita is a great handheld, but the 3DS does have a lot of great games. You know, I would never trade my time with Rune Factory for I don't think I'd trade it for anything realistically. Great game. Terraria with Vita. You know, you can tie games into handhelds, but I'm with you. I could see that. I don't regret getting rid of my 3DS as much as I love Pokemon and stuff like that because I just don't feel like I had enough reason to keep it around. Like, there's not been one time since I've gotten rid of it that I've been like, oh, I wish I had a 3DS right now.
Yeah, that is one of the systems for me where it's the opposite. I sometimes, and I still have, that's why I have my 2DS, is that every now and then I'll get a hankering to play Alpha Sapphire or something, and I have it, and just going to plug it on in and play it.
Well, that's good, and I get Corey's on that. His stance is that, you know, why do it? If you ever get a random hankering, you don't got to go buy or do anything. You already have it.
Yeah, and hey, speaking of our topic of the show, this is our emulation might come in a little bit of handy dandy.
Sure. Anyway, so what's an event that was focused around a game or
I don't really care. I don't care about events at all. Like now that we have this, like I'm looking forward to trying to go to PSX this year because I couldn't last year. But like other than that, I could care less. I'd rather sit at home and live stream it on my TV.
So you wouldn't like to go see now? PSX is different than E3, right? E3 used to be like something I want to go to, but it's really not aimed at consumers because of PSX being more like a con, like almost like a PAX.
I'll say it kind of like this, that I don't mean insultingly, but like if I wasn't part of the show, I would not go to PSX at all. Like I just don't care that much, like to go.
Yeah, and you don't have to
stand
go
around waiting, and you stand and you end up getting to play something for like 15 to 20 minutes and talk with the devs for a few minutes, but you have to wait 4 hours to do so, 3 hours, 2 hours. It's a lot of like just stand around and wait time for what I've seen.
It depends on what you want. I could see that. Me and Blaze avoided all the things that would take time because we didn't want to do it.
Yeah, like Horizon. Did y'all say Live Horizon 4 hours
Yeah,
long?
we didn't do it.
Yeah,
and I wanted to play it, but don't get me wrong. I was like, I'm not going to waste my time. Instead, what did we do? We actually went around and found a lot of cool games. That was the first year. That was 2016.
That's when you played Chasm, right?
That's the first time we played Chasm, which was really cool. And then there was we played Celeste that year too. That was the first year we played Celeste before it came out. So we spent more time having fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going as a group to meet people and stuff. But like as for the substance at the event, I don't really care. Like everything else at that event, I can see from the comfort of my home. Which when it comes to crowded like convention centers like this, where it's just I don't like being around lots of people. I get really annoyed because of that. And it's like going to like Walmart to do grocery shopping. That has to be like 20 minutes or less thing for me because it's just annoying to get in and out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm normally like that. I mean, I hate going to Walmart. I'll give you that. But PSX is different to me just because, I didn't have a problem with people getting in my way or doing anything. People are real cool and nice. It's actually very interesting.
A couple of videos that I saw of PSX, just checking it out while it was going on, I was like, it looks like it's annoying to walk through that because of the amount of people there.
The first year
You're
was
bumping into or trying to get around.
The first year was worse. The last year was actually great. They had everything. They like doubled the size of the show floor.
Well, yeah, that's good
which
then.
made it way better. And they had things scheduled, so people a lot of the cool things that you'd want to do, you had a chance to schedule. That way, you knew you weren't waiting. You just go when it was your turn.
That's pretty cool. That's what I like.
Now, of course, they ran out of schedule spots too quick because they kind of under predicted how much people would want to do certain things. But they're working on that because that was the first year they did that. It helped. And then everything else that we did was just walking around and kind of being like, oh, I think that from what I know you do like, I think you would actually really enjoy talking to the indie devs like we did and seeing those games.
That's the thing. Is like that's why I would like it. But everything else, but that's not enough to make me want to go or enough to make me feel like, what's it called? FOMO.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
And I'll say I don't have fear of missing out on PSX either, but I do like PSX because it feels like the thing that's most anchored towards me. I would go to a PAX or something like that potentially, but it depends on how much you see. Because the reason I want to go there is to look at games that are very interesting and weird. I don't really need. I know I'm going to play the first party games, so I want to look more at the games like if I would have been able to play Dead Cells on the show floor. That'd have been awesome. Well, and talk to them and go, what made you want to do this? Like that Immortal Unchained game that I got to sit there and talk to them about. It was interesting to talk to them about.
Wasn't that a really bad shooting game?
Well, it's the Souls-like shooter game, and it's not. To me, it's not bad. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, the game's not out yet. I don't think. Did it come out?
I
can't remember. But my point being is, I'm at least interested in trying it because it's an interesting idea. And when the developers were talking about it, it was very interesting. I mean.
It just says 2018, so probably 2019.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway. What I mean is that talking to developers like that, and even talking to the Super Meat Boy team about the reason that they changed over to auto runner instead of letting you run on your own, and what that means, and like procedurally generated levels that are different every time. It was very interesting.
I mean, that does sound cool and all, but like, I don't think that like this sounds mean, but like. If I saw a dev and stuff like that, I'd probably be like, "Hey, that's the dev. Cool. Let me get a picture." I would not bother. I feel like I'm bothering them, even though I know that's what they're there for.
Oh yeah, no, because they were all excited that we even cared, and we actually didn't take pictures with them or anything. That you could tell that they were more excited that people wanted to talk to them about what they were making. Because you got to think, it's like talking with somebody about their work. It's always more fulfilling when it's someone who you can tell understands your work and is like really cares about it, instead of the person who's just like, oh, it's Bruce Willis, let me take a picture of Bruce Willis and annoy him, instead of somebody who's just talking to him like he's a person. Like, hey, I really like what you're doing. It's an interesting thing,
but yeah,
because developers in this climate can be celebrities.
Well, and I'm also fairly introverted. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't feel like I have an off day unless I'm like 5 hours at home. And like today, since we got here around 1:30, and then we went to eat, and then now we're doing this. It's 5:15 right now. And like I probably won't get home because we got to go do stuff after this, and I'll probably won't be home till like 8:30. And like that's what it's like. Like I have days of where I do not leave the house because I feel like it's only an off day if I get to relax and do exactly what I want to do. Because I'm that introverted.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm with you. You know, I don't typically leave the house.
Yeah.
Like, so I mean, we have that
I prefer
in common.
that.
Okay. Well, Interesting question, Corey. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
Let's see. Time to move into the main topic, and that is going to be jumped off from this piece of information. And this is not the first one to do so, but longtime emulation hotspot MeteoricDemise has decided to stop hosting the download of ROMs and ISOs on their sites in response to recent heat from Nintendo on a number of ROM sites. There have been a couple of smaller ROM sites that have been closing in the past couple weeks. We've been talking about it on Discord and seeing it. And now that one of the main ones that people use, MeteoricDemise, is closing down, what it basically starts to beg the question of is, why is Nintendo doing this to begin with?
It's because it's Nintendo.
Secondarily, and then we can go into it because it's a very, very layered argument about a lot of things of why emulation is important in some senses, why it's bad in some senses because it's less about emulation, more about pirating at certain points, and the harm in that. But then lastly, also the ability to emulate games and basically so that you can continue to preserve the legacy of what that game was, because a lot of games are hard to get. And if the companies that are behind them do not re-release them, then there's no way to play them outside of emulation. So that's kind of where I want to start steering the argument at, because there's a lot of people who do that in particular. And it comes down to a couple of things, right? The moral gray area of emulation is, are you stealing from a company? And realistically, are you stealing? And the answer only becomes yes when you're pirating games that are actually on sale that you can buy right now, which tends to be most games that came out throughout the PS3 generation and onward. There's some games that don't quite fit into that for a number of reasons.
Well, a lot of them.
From different licensing things where you still can't find them. But most games that have released on the PS3 and the 360 gen upward are available still to purchase, at least digitally, so that you have a way to go about getting them. The problem with emulation is that the primary use of emulation is playing games from cartridge-based consoles. Original cartridge. You think about that Sega Genesis games. That is older
Super
PlayStation
Nintendo.
1 games. There's Super Nintendo games.
Did you say older PlayStation 1 games?
Yeah, those aren't cartridges. I know that, but it's still they're games that tend to get emulated. Most people emulate PS1 still.
You threw me off when you said cartridge-based games.
Yeah,
you had PS1 thrown in there.
I get you, but still, those are the games that mostly get But that was also the 64 is a cartridge base. It was around the same generation as that, because the 64 and the PlayStation
that's
were the same
roughly
generation.
Yeah, I was going to say that's roughly the same
just
generation.
one decided to go disc route, which paid off for them. But still, with that being said, the reason that it goes this way is that those older games were never available on any kind of digital storefront, so they're hard to get a hold of. Even when the PS3 made a lot of PlayStation 1 games available digitally, not all of them made it there. Because Sony can't control that. They can control the ones that they have, stance behind, but Activision and everybody else has to do that on their own games. And then Nintendo has to start doing something to get these games out there too. So you think about how many games there are across those systems, and those are there, right? That's not even accounting for the Atari and all the consoles that actually caused the initial failing of the game industry that Nintendo ended up bringing back. Those are games that are also very hard to get a hold of, and when you come across them, they're normally very expensive. So you have two things. Are the games even available for you to buy? If you're playing games that you have no other way of getting outside of emulating them.
For those that don't know, if you buy a used game from GameStop, the developer doesn't see a penny from that. And I don't know a lot of people that don't know that.
Well, there are people that think that GameStop pays them.
They don't pay them, though.
Now, don't get me wrong. I think that it takes a little bit of naivety to believe that that's the setup, but no.
We have friends who work in high-ranking positions in GameStop. I can tell you right now, that's not how that works. All that money goes to the store.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm not going to say rightfully so, but also
not
wrongfully so.
I'm going to say at least GameStop is the one that paid the person to bring that game in and buy it off of them. So yeah, they deserve the profits. Yeah. Some will argue that they are extreme profits. Well, yeah, you can't complain about GameStop profits if you're going to go do it yourself. So
yeah,
you know what you get when you're going into GameStop to trade something in.
So I'm assuming you brought that up because in a sense it's stealing. Or what would you bring that up?
No, because like everybody, I've heard a side of emulators of like, oh, well, I emulate that game when you can go buy it at GameStop and give the developer the money. I'm like, you're an idiot for thinking that. That's not how that works.
Yeah, well, and see, the other thing is right. So GameStop is not even one of them. Let's talk about like local mom and pop.
Now
shops.
That is one I will say that if you have like a really cool local game store, always support your local place before you do anything online.
Sure.
If they have it,
as
if
much
they
as
can
you
facilitate your needs.
Yeah, but then the other side of that, right, is like, okay, Sarah, and she actually is helping us on some stuff. So thank you for that, Sarah.
Yeah,
but,
thank you.
Mentioning her, she's trying to get every Zelda game that's ever been in existence, right? Some of those include the Philips disc thing that came out. Anyway, there's very particular games that are very hard to get. So if you just wanted to play them so that you could understand what they were like, but you didn't have a way of A, getting the console to play them on, or B, getting the games to begin with, the games are hundreds of dollars to find and get.
Right, and then Nintendo's not seeing a single cent of that $100 either.
Yeah, right, and you're just getting it from different people. And it also comes down to, should you be deprived of getting to experience what that game was like, though, just because you can't afford the $400 that someone wants? Boy, that's sick looking.
Well, I mean, even that, though, is that some companies lend themselves better for scalpers, and Nintendo's one of them. They intentionally short some of their stuff just so scalpers, and I don't think I say intentionally. I think that they are aware they have issues, but they don't correct those issues.
Well, but it creates a hype, right?
It creates an ongoing situation that doesn't get resolved. Because when the original NES came out and there was shortage stock, then they should have fixed that before they even launched the Super Nintendo. They should have had enough units available that they would meet demand numbers of what NES was, a couple months after sales before it launched. And instead, they launched it anyways, and then it became sold out again, just like the NES did.
Now, you're talking about the mini NES,
yeah, the minis.
Just so you know.
And essentially, what you're paying there is for an emulator.
Yeah.
Well,
actually, if I remember right, those aren't actually emulators, right? They're the actual innards of those consoles.
Absolutely not.
Are you positive? I swore that was what it was supposed to be.
The console is this big.
Well, yeah, but it's the chip of the console. They don't have, because it can't take cartridges. There's no cartridge reader.
The menu you have is what I'm 99% sure is what looks to be like a Raspberry Pi emulator screen.
Well, it may be so, but what I guess I mean by that is that what it could still be is that it could be something that has a new interface on there, but then when the games go to run, instead of emulating the hardware you're running it on, is it running on the actual hardware? There's a difference between the two.
I don't think so, no. I think it's emulating.
Technically, you're not emulating if the real hardware goes back there for them to run on. I don't know if that's true or not, but I swore I actually remembered something about the mini consoles having the original chipsets in them.
Now, you're getting confused with the Xbox One having the Xbox thing?
No, I don't. I'm curious as to why I'm thinking that, because it's also interesting that there's HDMI out on them, and still it could still be the same inner hardware, but I'm curious.
Okay, so it is an emulation, but it's of two different Super FX processors, as evidenced by the retro console support for Star Fox, its sequel Yoshi's Island, but are not the integration of the hardware that is fascinating. The implementation of it and how Nintendo utilized the extra power alongside the console's native capabilities, yeah. So it's using something called a Super FX chip.
So it has something that's kind of instead of emulating, it's kind of running, but it's also emulating on top of that to help it run smoothly, is what it sounded like.
I guess
that sounds weird. But anyway, you're right, though. And then you also can't buy. So, let's just say Nintendo's going around to all these sites and they're trying to close them down for different games, right? Some of these games you can't get on Nintendo's thing. Nintendo is refusing to do what do you even call them? What is Nintendo's thing?
What do you mean?
What do they call it whenever they do their emulated games that you've seen? Virtual console?
Oh yeah, right? I was like, you're not giving me enough context.
Yeah, Nintendo is not doing a virtual console, or have continuously say that they are currently not focused on virtual console for the Switch. So it means that none of those games that they've ever put on Virtual Console that they always have to keep re-rolling through with the Wii onto the 3DS and onto the Wii U. But with that said, when they're not doing that, none of those games are available for you to purchase. So Nintendo's not missing out on money. The publishers aren't missing out on money for you getting these games because there's no way for you to purchase them and use them and play them. Now, think about this. What if the retro mini systems that they did, like the NES and the SNES, came out and they were actually a hub? It came with this many games already on it to justify the price, and then also the ability to connect to the internet and buy other games that have been converted to digital format so that you could play any SNES game on the SNES version. If you're on the NES Mini, you could play any NES game. All you had to do is buy it. Now, you couldn't control that completely because some of the people would just not want to pay the licensing fees to put them on there.
Right.
I get that. But for the most part, you'd have a one-stop shop to play all these games and have a way to do it. If you wanted to play any NES game right now without emulation and ROMs, you would have to find an NES, hopefully that one that's in good enough shape for you to run. Then you have to find every game that it is you're wanting to play and hope that you can find it and hope that it's within a budget that you can actually do. That's where it comes into this really interesting area of a moral gray area, because these are not games that you can go out and buy on a shelf. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't go and buy a brand new physical copy of Chuck Rock 2 Son of Chuck on the Genesis. You're not going to get that game. And the developer probably doesn't even exist. So the developer or the publisher are not missing out on any money because they currently do not have another way for me to purchase it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not even big on emulation, but I get the reason as to why there's importance to it.
Yeah, it is a pure emulation. Judging by a gaming journalist website, then I'll give you 2 guesses on what they are, and it's probably something you hate. Yeah, it's all emulation. There's a matter of fact, you can actually hack the SNES Mini, add more ROMs to it. So that's probably one side they're coming from is that being a market, a potential market. And
sure, and if that's what they're going to do, then great. But,
right.
But they're also currently, because they're not giving us any
info,
even hints of that being something that they're doing, it leads you to believe it's like, well, why are you doing this? Unless it's because like, if there's going to be a mini 64, I don't know if there will be or not.
Well, Nintendo has always been out of touch with all of its users because they still copyright crap stuff or stuff on YouTube.
Well, and then they also they shut down on these Pokemon ROMs that are going on that people are making. It's like you don't realize that this makes Pokemon more popular.
Not only that, but it's
to an extent.
They like people who will say review a Pokemon game, they will get their stuff taken down by copyright law, and it's like it's like they don't care or know what copyright law is because what they're doing is fair use. And people have gone
but they still have the ability to say
they still
no.
have the ability.
But
to say, that's what I'm saying.
It's a dumb thing for them to do, in my opinion.
It is. And I've seen people who go as far as to draw the things. Like they'll make crude drawings of Pikachu and stuff when they're talking about these games because you can't copyright that. They made that. I mean, you could technically using the likeness of a character, but it's more of a gray area to go through all that than it is emulation, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting thing.
I don't emulate anymore. If I was to buy on Etsy, they have backlit Game Boy Advances, and it's like modded systems that come with a little card, a little memory card for it, or SD card reader. And people say that. I think what legally is true about ROMs is that it is not illegal to download a ROM for a game you currently own.
Yes, that's true.
So.
Well, technically, but the thing is, you can rip your own ROM of a game you own. Is the real thing is that you create a ROM of something you own. So
I think you can legally download a ROM that if you own the game.
Well, yeah.
Somebody correct me
why
on
not?
this.
You have the game, so yeah.
Well,
it would logically hold that you would be able to download a ROM of a game that you already physically own. And all it would be doing is basically saving you the trouble of having to put it in. Because like PS1, right? If your PC can play, if you have a disk drive in your PC, you can put a PS1 disc in there. When you download a PS1 emulator, it can play directly off that disc. Or
that's cool.
Or if you own the game but you don't want to have to put a disc in every time, just download a ROM, right?
Yeah.
So that's where that is. But I think that there's more to be said about the fact that, in a way, ROMs keep a history of games alive.
Oh, no, they do.
That are otherwise. And I would say that the argument about that being the most important thing about emulation is that it keeps the history and story of gaming alive for you to experience in real time. Instead of having to solely rely on stories and hearing stuff or watching videos, you can go back and experience what that game was and like try and put yourself in the shoes of someone who booted up Sonic for the first time. And now Sonic's probably not a great example. You can get Sonic on PlayStation 4. You can buy the Sega collection.
I mean, yeah, you can get on your phone at this point.
Yeah, but there's different games. But I'm just trying to use a broad stroke example.
Minish Cap would be a better example because Minish Cap you can't really download anywhere else.
It was on 3DS for a while, but I think it was only part of the Ambassador program.
That was the Ambassador program.
So
only the Ambassadors
let's just say
download.
a game, right? So a game that you can't get anywhere else, whatever it be.
Any Game Boy Advance game.
Yeah.
Like pretty much any I'll say that any first party Game Boy
Kirby's
Advance game.
Dark Mirror or whatever it was called. It's not Dark Mirror.
I was gonna say that's
Nightmare Land, Nightmare Dreamland, whatever.
Kirby's Dreamland is one.
Dreamland. Yeah,
I don't remember what the Game
Boy
Advance Kirby's were called.
Yeah, because Dreamland was the one that introduced Meta Knight, right? If I remember right.
No, that was Super Nintendo and Kirby.
Wow, then maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing.
Yeah, I can't remember what
was Meta Knight the enemy in Dreamland? Who knows?
I mean,
I'm not a huge Kirby fan. He's not the enemy in every Kirby game, though, is he?
He's one of them, and then you have
King Dedede and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then you have a couple like newer ones that I haven't played.
I didn't know if they rotate them out, but
yeah, like if you let's say you cannot go buy it right now anywhere near us within probably I would even go as far to say 5,000 miles around us that you can go and buy a new Game Boy Advance game, a new Nintendo 64 game, or a brand new in-package sealed PS1 game.
Well, no, those are sealed. Even then, whatever profits they would have made from it, whoever's selling you is the one seeing that. Nintendo's not making it. Now, they made profit off the original sale,
yeah,
I guess,
yeah, because you're buying these from this point at mom and pop shop, which I'll tell you right now, and I said it earlier.
Or individual sellers.
Yeah, if you have like a gaming shop that is local to you and you like them, I would support them all the way. You know, I would never tell you to emulate something if you have the ability to go over there and buy it. The prices are one thing too, but like try to support out local businesses that you can.
Yeah, but sometimes they don't have it.
Well, I mean, for people like, let's say, like if I was to buy one of those Game Boy Advance
things that you were just talking about.
Yeah, it would be technically illegal for me to download any of these ROMs because I do not own any of the games. Yeah. But you cannot buy any of these games. You can't go buy a brand new Pokemon Emerald for example. And
well, and what's the difference again? Like you say, so what's the difference for me going? So even if I did, right? Let's just say I download Pokemon Emerald because Emerald's not available on any other system right now, right?
Yeah, it's not available.
Specific. Now you could say that you could say that Alpha Sapphire and whatnot are close enough to it, but so let's go a little crazier, right? Let's just go with again. Use a random game. Let's go with Boogerman. You can't buy Boogerman anywhere, right? I can't go buy it brand new. Let's say I wanted to download a ROM of it, right? Well, so it's suddenly legal, and this is where we probably need to know, but it's suddenly legal for me to download the ROM if I just go buy it used from somebody else first. They still didn't see any profit from that or any money from that, but as long as I own the physical cartridge, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a grayer area.
But what an odd, illogical stance on it, right? Now, on new games that you can still buy, I get it, because that's why I say there's a very big difference between just emulating and pirating. Emulating is, I tend to want to use to like PS2 and back is kind of where I like to keep it. Now, I know that emulating truly does just mean emulating the hardware of any system. There are people that emulate PS3 right now. You can play Demon's Souls on PC on an emulated PC. You can play Breath of the Wild emulated from Wii U on PC. These are things you can do. But that's veering into territory of pretty much
that's
piracy.
Darker.
Pirating.
Yeah, I'll say that's darker where you version of the legal spectrum.
It's really not a moral or legal gray area. Well, really, I'm not going to say legal gray area. It's more of a moral dark area, but it's also illegal to a full extent. Now, the reason that I say emulation is morally a gray area is because there's no immediate victim. Now, people talk about all the time, well, victimless crime, but realistically, there is no way for me to honestly go and get this in a way that benefits the people that made the game. So, I mean, no matter what, someone else who had nothing to do with the original creation of that game is going to be making the money off of this because they own it and they've just happened to either buy it at a point when it was low or own it since it came out. That's not the same. So, I mean, no matter what I do, I'm not getting. And now, again, that's kind of covered over that first sale act. What's the difference? Well, that's why I say it's morally gray. Right. There's no real answer over it being wrong unless it's that you're downloading games that you can go get.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to tell you is that, Ed, is to tell everybody, like, based off the conversations we have on the show, don't go out and do anything that you are unsure of its legality of it. Because
you make those decisions on your own.
Yeah. Don't let us try to influence you on ROMs and emulations. This is something that we're talking about, so then you can take your own opinion on it and then choose and decide if it lines with ours or if it doesn't. Or let us know in the comments because it is certainly an interesting topic to keep talking about.
Well, I'm saying okay, a big market we haven't talked about. Let's be kind of closing out on it, but like you said, go into the comments. But I imagine. And just let us know if you play. One of the highest usage of emulation right now is on cell phones. Do you emulate on your cell phone? If so, what games do you play? Are they games that are hard to find, or are they games that you can go get? And I think that's where the difference has to stand. If The Legend of Zelda, the very first one, was available for me to buy right now on the Switch, the 3DS, or the Wii U, which are all consoles that you can buy pretty easily and that you can get and go buy the game officially in a way that Nintendo makes profit, and I don't know if it is one, but if I downloaded that, there's a real reason to go, well, that's kind of messed up because I can go get this and I can do this. There's an official way for me. There's an official avenue for me to get the people who deserve this money. Now, that's one thing. Now, if you're playing some weird, obscure stuff that you just played as a kid that there's no other way for you to get, that's where I stand on. I'm not here to judge anyway.
And it's ironic.
If you do your thing, you do your thing. But there is some point where it doesn't matter.
It's ironic that we talked about Nintendo a lot this episode just because they're the main ones that are, of course, the most aggressors when it comes to stuff like this. And then the whole reason that MeteoricDemise is doing what it's doing. But it is funny because other than like that modern Game Boy Advance, that Sony has actually had the best system to use as an emulation. And it's going back to the Vita, it's the excuse of using this kind of memory card to prevent hacking and stuff just seems to be null now.
It is null now, but it took a long time.
Yeah.
And I'll give him that.
It took-
the PSP was already modded well ahead of the Vita, and easily so.
Do you think though that the time it took to actually finally hack it? Do you think that the time they killed it because of because of the memory card prices? Do you think that was worth it?
Oh no.
So okay.
No, it wasn't.
I saw somebody on Reddit say it was, and I was just like, I don't know what you mean. Like, I don't understand how you
mixed
can,
bag, because it probably would have been more worth it to Sony, because part of the reason that the PSP sold 80 million units is because
Vita.
people. I know.
Okay.
I'm comparing.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that the PSP sold 80 million hardware units is because people were buying them to hack them and use them as. So Sony saw some real benefit from that.
Yeah, the Pandora's battery was like what, $50 to do if you didn't have a battery. It would cost you just to replace a battery.
I never bought it, but I always just at the time I made my own Pandora battery. It wasn't
Yeah.
that crazy hard to do. It was weird, but it wasn't hard to do.
Yeah, and I mean even then it's.
But yeah, no, people found ways, and so a lot of people bought them because of that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to minimize the PSP. A lot of people bought the PSP because of great games.
Oh no, yeah, dude,
I mean,
Daxter,
it had,
Crisis Core.
Yeah, the Grand Theft Auto series that was on it.
I should have answered that. Daxter was one of my favorite.
Daxter's a good one too. So, but that's what I mean is that ultimately, no, it wasn't worth it, because the fact that the memory cards were as high as they were because of the way they chose to do it, which don't get me wrong, the PSP was also proprietary memory,
I will say
but
though,
it was useful on more than one Sony device.
I was going to say, yeah.
And they let SanDisk make a generic.
What were they called?
Memory Stick Pro Duo.
No, that's the PSP. I'm talking about the Vita.
Oh, honestly, I don't even know. I think they were just called Memory Stick.
Okay, well,
they had a special...
that had no other use than a Vita.
Yeah.
And then the Memory Stick Pro Duos, you found cameras with those. You found MP3 players that used
those. It was
those.
all Sony, but
all
still.
Sony, all the Sony Ericsson phones used those at that time era. Mm-hmm. It was.
And then when they switched to the M2, which was in the Sony Ericsson,
what's
the
crazy,
PSP Go had that.
Do you remember
one.
the prices for the Stick Duos? They weren't
awful.
They weren't. Yeah.
They weren't as good as SD cards, but they weren't.
I'm trying to remember. The 512 megabyte at the time, which was standard for the PSP. If that's the size I'm thinking of, right? 512 megabyte.
The PSP came with I want to say it was 256 megabyte card.
Well, I'm talking about the step up.
Oh,
the standard.
You could get higher. You could get up to a 4 gig card was possible on the PSP.
Right, but a 512 megabyte card was only, I think, $30.
I don't think it was that high. I think it was like
it was
now at launch maybe.
At Best Buy, that's where I got
launch,
mine. Yeah,
because
I got mine at Best
it got
Buy.
better over years.
I remember I had $50 for Christmas money. I'm like, guess I got to buy a memory card. And coincidentally, I think that's how I got Rengoku. I think Rengoku was on sale for $20 or something, and I picked it up too. Boy, was that a bad decision. I'm trying real hard to think of where I got that game because it wasn't GameStop. I want to say that was like
Target.
I didn't go to Target and shop for games as a kid.
Yeah, that was. But Babbage's was closed by then, I think.
Well, Babbage's didn't sell games here.
But whenever we had a Babbage's, it did.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did.
No, they didn't.
They were in the same building GameStop was in. They sold games.
Oh, no, never mind. I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking of what's the other one that starts with a B that was in the mall?
Babbage's was in the mall, and it was where GameStop is in the mall. And
that's before the name change. I'm thinking of another store, a toy store in the mall that started with a B. It's very similar to Babbage's, but it's not Babbage's.
KB Toys is the only thing I know about.
No, it's not KB Toys. I remember that place though. But they sold. It was on the. It's where across the hall or whatever from where Starlight is now. It's on that empty side. There's nothing there. It was there, and it was a toy store, but it started with a B, like Ballmer's or something like that.
I don't know. That's weird.
I say do you remember the McDonald's in our mall?
Yes.
It was at that time period.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. It was a weird mall. Anyway, this has gone on a little bit longer than I expected it to. Anyway, let us know your thoughts on emulation and kind of what you think the benefits are. There's probably ones we didn't even cover, but I do think the primary benefit is the ability to keep the history of gaming alive, including games that you would have no way to access now. We all need to be able to download E.T. for the Atari.
Do you know why that game cost so much?
See how god-awful that game was. Probably because of some licensing fee.
That was the landfill.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Oh, okay. That's why that game is so expensive.
Because
they all went to the landfill.
Yeah, most of them are in a landfill.
Yeah,
which is insanity. So.
But yeah, let us know what you think in terms of us. You heard what we thought. Kind of great. The whole board, pros and cons to everything. But let us know. Do you or have you ever emulated? What'd you think? What'd you emulate? Did you do it on your phone?
Yeah, the phone thing is interesting because I guarantee you, Richard of all people.
No, Richard definitely does.
Yeah, because he was doing what was it? It was Link Between Worlds, wasn't it?
You can't emulate that. I would be shocked if you could emulate that already. That's a 3DS game.
Oh, not Link Between Worlds. My bad.
A Link to the Past.
Link to the Past. Yes, thank you. Man, yeah, if you could emulate that, you'd
Well,
be doing
A Link to the Past is what people say is the easiest Zelda game to emulate because there's so many versions of it,
Mm-hmm.
like the Game Boy Advance version and then the Super Nintendo version.
Sure, I
But
got you.
thank you guys for tuning in, and as always, we'll see you guys for episode 73. Here are our Patreon members that we love so much. Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.